Three, two, one, let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode on the George Habib podcast. The topic of today is it's a bit specific, but I feel it's pretty important for a bunch of us out there. Maybe a bunch of us currently in relationships or starting a family. And that is basically how money affects relationships. We're going to start with the dating aspect of it, going into marriage and ending with the family planning, all with the help of our pretty professional and qualified guests who, you know, his previous vid was amazing and this one's going to be amazing too. The financial constructor, George. How are you doing, man?
Doing all right, George. Doing all right, man. I would say we're back by popular demand. I will tell you, I got a lot of good feedback. Folks that jumped on and listened to our first segment, and they really enjoyed how you navigated that conversation, and they thought they took a lot out of it. So let's give it to the people.
Bro, even on my end, I'm going to be like frank, like people, they just love the way you talk. They love the information you give and they just love your energy.
Sounds good. Let's give the people the energy, man.
For sure, for sure. But as usual, before we get into all of that, guys, if you haven't already done so, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share our social media, including George's social media, which will all be linked down below, because doing so helps us grow. The more we grow, the more guests we can bring in, the more content we can produce for you guys out there. So, having said that, let's get into the topic. How does money affect relationships? So this could be like basically how your earnings affect your dating life, how your savings can affect your family life when it comes to marriage, pretty much all of the above, the power dynamic. So let's get going with the dating part of it. George, I got to ask you, walking in the club, walking in the bar, throwing some money around, buying drinks for everybody, trying to get that special someone in my life. What's the biggest factor in that? Is it my my charisma? Is it my personality? Is it my style? Is it my wallet? What's going on here?
Yeah, look, there's we were all there. I was there, guilty, and guilty as charged. And it depends, man. When I would go out, sometimes we all have an agenda, and that's part of it, right? I think sometimes we walk in and we have an agenda on something. There was nights when I had an agenda, and it wasn't to bring anybody to mom and dad, right? It That's just the real. They're just keeping it real. And I was willing to flaunt some dollars to show my power, if you will, my added value, if you will, but with the agenda in mind, right? And then there's times where I would go out and I was looking for somebody a little more serious, and it wasn't necessarily the club. I could have been out at a party. I could have been at at an event that I was invited to, and it was still trying to give the persona of an individual that seems put together. And part of that, unfortunately, when people look at you, they want to see if you're financially put together. So those are some of the realities that we deal with when it comes to dating.
And how would you show you're financially put together? Like, is it the clothes? Is it the attitude? Is it buying basically everyone you meet at the bar a drink?
Right. And that's the thing. It's the superficial stuff. It's exactly what you're saying. It's the clothes, right? Making sure you got the high-end clothes. How many times before we went out to a nice party, A, we got a fresh cut, B, we went to the mall, got a nice fitted, got the jeans, got the shoes. Sometimes we got a vest on. We wanted to make sure we're looking the part. And then of course, once we're out and about, we want to seem like we are the head of the table, right? Sometimes overextending ourselves financially for that moment that we think that it's the return on investment that we're going to get, right? We buy everybody a drink, knowing good and well you should have no business doing it, but you're just thinking about the girl that's there, right? I want her to know that this is the alpha in the room. And sometimes we shoot our money in the foot.
But like, do you feel it works? Because I feel
Ooh.
like, and I've been guilty of this. I go in, buy a ton of people drinks. You know, everyone's having a good time. Get to the girl, and then she orders what she wants. She says thank you, and then she walks to a different table.
That's exactly right, man. That's exactly that's to answer your question. Do I find that it works? You think time and time again that it does work, but when she leaves with the broke guy in the club, you just realize, why did I do it? And then you leave and you do it again, thinking this is how we win the girl, right? We
Yeah.
win the prize in the room. And there's so many other things, factors that come into play, that sometimes we really think that the dollars are really gonna get us whoever we want.
Yeah, because like once she's got the dollars, or once the person you're going after has already got the drink, like that's it. You know, obviously there's no obligation for her to provide you with anything, nor should there be. But like, yeah, if we're going to talk about it in like investment terms, that was like a poor financial decision.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. You definitely made a poor decision. You didn't mitigate your risk because you really extended yourself and you have nothing to fall back on except maybe the big girl on the night if you're really needing a good time. But you are overextending yourself, right? And if you're talking about financial terms, we don't teach that, right? You got to
Yeah.
mitigate your risk. You got to understand your exit strategy, etc. And that is the exact opposite of what we do.
Yeah, but I feel like some people do the opposite of mitigating risk when they use that, let's call it that financial tactic of trying to get a date. I've seen people who would actually increase the risk by doing all that after being pretty drunk. They get drunk, they don't keep attention, they don't pay attention of how many drinks they're buying. They just like pass the credit card, they just throw the credit card at the bartender, who's like, well, sure thing. And they just swipe, run up the tab, and then for a while, like everybody at the bar is now suddenly your best friend for the night. Keep buying them drinks, wake up with a hangover, check up your credit statement, and oh my god, you are in debt now.
That's right. Well,
Forget the girl, forget anything. Your money's all gone.
it's gone. Well, here's the thing. You got to remember something. It's almost like if you're walking into an H&M and a Zara, right? Zara. I don't know if you guys have that in Canada, but Zara is like
Yeah, yeah, we got it.
higher end higher end retail store. So if you walk into Zara, right, there's an expectation, if it's your first time in Zara, when you walk in, that it's high end clothing and you're gonna be spending a little more if you're gonna end up buying in this store. You have an expectation when you walk in there, right?
Yeah.
If you're your first time. You walk into an H&M, you're getting good quality clothes, but you're not gonna spend high end dollars more often than not if you go to an H&M in there. So what am I trying to say? A lot of times when we go into these outings, right, looking for someone, what we're doing is, especially if you don't necessarily have the means to keep up financially, you're creating an expectation to someone that you're trying to go after, that this is the reality of who you are, that you have these dollars to flaunt and on a regular basis. And if it's somebody you're trying to captivate for a long term, you are creating an unrealistic expectation about your financial situation to that individual. And sometimes we get caught up, especially with millennials, right? We get caught up in the right now, the moment, and
Yeah.
we don't think too far ahead. But looking at it now, right now that I'm on the other side of the fence of with dating, and now I'm married and settled down with kids and all that, the expectations, man. Sometimes we set up these unrealistic expectations early on, and then it doesn't create long term success in a relationship.
But also, like, isn't it like, for example, here we're talking specifically about dating. If you do go all out at the start, and then you attract a girl who like is going for you specifically because she expects you're all out for that one time to be like the norm for the rest of the, let's call it, the relationship, aren't you just attracting the wrong kind of girl?
You could be. You very well could be, because if those are their expectations and realistically those aren't your long-term expectations, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So um what advice do I give? That you got to stay within, especially in an outing. Let's say you're going out, right? If you're going out somewhere, you're trying to attract a female that you like, or whatever the case may be. One advice I would give to folks in general is to just stay comfortable in your reality.
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to get everybody, right? Doesn't matter how great you look, right? Doesn't matter, not everybody's has different tastes, different preferences, etc. So you're not going to swing 100%, 10 out of 10 every time.
Yeah.
So if you stay in your reality and be comfortable in your reality, then whoever falls in your zone is going to fall into your reality, and that creates more sustained success.
Also, do you feel like it's kind of a race to the bottom when you start flaunting your money? Because at the club, at the bar, in life, you're always going to see these guys. They pay too much money for their polos, too much money for their kicks. You know, they come in flashing all this jewelry, these Ray Bans, these the caps, and all that stuff. They're throwing down all that money, and you can throw down all that money at the end of the day. But if you go up to a parking lot, a guy pulls up in a Lamborghini, all of a sudden it was kind of for nothing. Because no matter how much money you're throwing down at the bar, if no matter like how much debt you're kind of putting yourself in on your credit card, there's always going to be a bigger fish than you financially,
Always.
especially when it comes to going after the wrong woman. Because the wrong woman wants that, they want those zeros at the end of the bank account with hopefully like at least a non-zero number at the start.
That's right.
Yeah, like so like there's just no point into doing all of this. Me, I come from Dubai, I can drop as much money I want on Cristal, the champagne,
Oh yeah.
at a club, get like some cute girls interested in me. The second a sheik, a
Oh
sheikh.
yeah. Oh yeah.
The second some rich businessman, the second a celebrity pulls up, she'll grab her glass, say thanks for this, whatever this is, leaves, and then that's it. So I guess that's not really a sustainable way to find a girl.
That's right.
So that's the bad, like that's kind of something you don't recommend as a dude, as a fellow bro, and as a financial coach. But if you, and this is a good segue into the next part of the discussion,
Okay.
if you want to find that partner,
Mm.
like a good quality partner, someone who's not really going to go after like broke guys, let's be honest, but who's not really like going for people like with all the like chunk of change because that's all she cares about.
Sure.
How am I going to find that girl?
That's an interesting question there, George. And this question, um, the answer to this question has evolved over centuries,
Yeah.
right? Think about it. If you think about it, the answer to that question is never black and white. It's never black and white. It has continued to evolve over the course of time. Maybe centuries ago, it was within the same family, because this was,
Mm.
you were the second cousin, you were marrying the second cousin of the family. What? Because this is where it was. Then you have other arrangements with marriage and whatnot. Then of course, and as time has evolved, of course, people can go out and meet people, here and there, going out to a party, going out to a function, hanging out with friends, whatever the case may be. Then we went through a pandemic, right? And now all of a sudden, folks are meeting each other online, and sometimes the first time you meet somebody is the day you meet them at the local Starbucks, and you have been, you're hoping that this is really who the person is, and there's success with that too. So, to say where do you find the person, it continues to evolve. It continues to
Yeah.
evolve. So it's hard to say a black and white answer on that. But what I will say is this. This I will say is, um, first of all, my wife, I met her at a party personally. Um, so for what it's worth, but I think more often than not, you will find who you are looking for as you're focusing more on yourself. And through that, in your journey of your improvement, in your goals, in your pursuit of your personal goals and personal gain,
Yeah, your journey.
along the way, you will find that person. It could be at a party. It could be at a family outing. It could be at a church. It could be at a bank. It could be at a grocery store. It could be online. It could be any of these places now, right? There's so many various places now, and the variety has changed where you can meet someone. But I think if you're focusing on your pursuit of what you're heading on your mission, you will find that person in the journey. So instead of focusing on finding the person, focus on yourself, and the rest will come in. That's what I believe.
So are you part of the school that says don't actively like seek out dating until you got your own stuff together? Like just focus on self development and then good things will come.
Yeah, my own little variation to that, I would say, is that be comfortable, be comfortable alone as you're pursuing your goals. Be comfortable and be prepared to be alone if you have to be alone, as long as you're
Yeah.
pursuing your goal. And then number two is that the person you find has to be along the road of where you're heading next. That's two things. If you stick to those two things, A, one of two things will happen. A, you might end up alone, but you were prepared for that, right? Or two, that person will come along and it's not a deterrence of where you were headed, that now you're getting off road, heading into the woods because you're chasing the girl that you thought you're supposed to be, and it turns out you lost a lot of time, and where did life go, and I was going here and now I'm over here. So two things: A, be prepared to be alone, but two, if you stay on your goal and on your mission, that person will have to be found along your journey where you're heading next.
Yeah. So basically they have to be like a complement to your life, an added value. But bro, like that part where you say like be comfortable alone, I think that's hard for a lot of other people out there, myself included, because it kind of sucks to be alone.
Absolutely. I agree
Like
with
sometimes I'm trying to navigate the dating world, and I feel like dating has become like a catalog for some people. They go through the apps, they just swipe, swipe, swipe who they like. Maybe they like this dude, but like, oh, they found a better dude. Maybe they'll settle for this girl, but they really wanted that girl. Like it's become like a little game, and not everyone's winning. I feel like dating online's been like dominated by a few guys at the top. We're talking about like really rich dudes, like guys who look like freaking models, celebs, and all that stuff. And then like you got like all the ladies out there, who they're trying to look for a man, but then they'll find like what so far seems to be a decent man, but then they swipe and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this guy looks way better than that other guy. So
right.
like if you're not really a 10 out of 10 and you're a guy, you're at a disadvantage. Because the guys at the top, those guys aren't looking for wifey. They're not looking for girlfriend either. They're maybe like dropping by town. They want to have some fun.
Right.
And from what I get told a lot by like the women I know, friends and family and everything, they're on the apps because they're also lonely and they want to find a good man.
Sure.
And I'm on the apps because I am lonely, and a lot of people my age are, a lot of guys, and I do want to find a girlfriend.
Absolutely.
But again, we're stuck in that cycle where only those guys at the top really get what they want, which is just fun. Those girls, it seems to me, I don't want to generalize, they go straight for those guys at the top because maybe they want something serious, but like, that guy doesn't want anything serious. He gets what they want, they get burned, and the guys like me kind of get nothing.
Yeah.
And I know it kind of sounds pathetic. It kind of sounds like self deprecating, but I feel it's like something I have to acknowledge so I don't waste any time on these apps. So I go to the gym, I improve my worth, I work better in my job. Hopefully, there's a promotion. I work on this podcast. Hopefully, there's like a little name recognition out there. And then I just don't waste my time feeling like a total loser on these apps because I feel like that's just not a good use of my resources.
That's right, man. And that's for you, and that's for anybody else, that male or female, that's looking for their partner or companion, hasn't found them yet. Focus on yourself and focus on your mission. First of all, you got to know where your mission is. We talked about this the last time about having that our millennials right now are struggling because they don't have a north. We talked about that last time about the north. You got to
Yeah.
have a north. Find, identify, and create your north. If you don't already have your north, create your north.
Mhm.
Because if you know where north is, whomever comes along the way, if they come, if you have to be comfortable and prepared if they don't, if that person does never comes. But if they come, it's on your path to the north, so that then they are complementing where you're heading next. So to your point, physically taking care of yourself, getting to the gym, working out, doing all those things, professionally, excelling at work, being the best version of yourself, trying to get wherever you can in your professional growth. Business ventures, right? You're talking about starting a business from scratch. Hey, some of those dudes that are on those sites, yeah, they may have a lot of things, but they may not know how to run a business from scratch. They don't have that girth, that perseverance, that wherewithal that it takes. So that's something that for a woman, hey, I want to know that if I'm going through a tough time or we're going through tough times, you're going to be able to stick it through with us, right? And so there's a value to that. So those things, right? Those things you create and you establish and you build as you're pursuing your north. And so you focus on your north, and that's for everybody. Focus on that, and that person will have to come along. I'll tell you, with my wife personally, you know, I knew where I was going in life. I knew what was on my horizon, what I was going next. I knew what I was pursuing. I was getting my master's at the time. I knew I wanted to get into healthcare. I wanted my family. I knew I wanted to live in Tampa. My parents were very involved in the community here, and I was very involved with them. The whole thing. So whoever came along next had to coincide with where I was heading. And so when I met my wife, right? Well, at the time was, of course, when I met the girl who then became my girlfriend, then my wife. But she knew
They're
those things.
hopefully all the same woman,
Oh
right?
yeah, same thing. Yeah, trust me, same thing. Don't get me in trouble, man. Don't get me in trouble. So same person. So but I made it very clear where I was heading and what I was going to, and so that if she thought that I was somebody that she found value in, that she knew where I was heading next, and this was the journey we're going.
Mm.
So focus on those things.
100%. So basically, what it comes down to in the dating part of this discussion is uh, don't get broke buying those overpriced drinks.
That's right.
Don't flash money around. I guess, dress respectable and all, but like, don't spread out your resources before you're settled yourself. Kind of like reverse that and put it all on your own self improvement. Work on your body, work on your own life, work on your own business, and then those things will come. The thing is, I feel like it's something that took me a while to realize is that the reason a lot of these guys at the top of the dating app food chain, or these guys in life who you see them like those gray foxes, I'm talking about, like
Oh yeah,
the gray fox, those George Clooney types. They got a
for
decent
sure.
car, a decent job. They're getting all the 20 something out there. What it makes me kind of realize is that, maybe that guy was me. He had nothing. He had nothing going for him. He didn't have money at my age. He didn't have like the looks at my age. Then he kind of worked on himself, and now he's like basically a George Clooney type, gray fox. Sorry,
Silver fox.
silver fox, and now he's kind of getting all the dates that I'm not getting. So maybe there's like a lesson in patience there.
That's it. That's
So
it.
let's say, okay, we go past the dating scene. Let's go into the actual marriage. Let's go into actual marriage. You know, uh, Whatever you did worked out. You found the girl of your dreams, or who you think is the girl of your dreams. You guys get married. Wedding's over.
Mm.
But I want to get into something very specific here. Does it matter if she makes more than you?
Good question. So I'll be specific and then I'll be general. Specific to me doesn't bother me one bit. Matter of fact, for what I do financially, I wish you made more than me, right? Because we'd be even further along. But it doesn't bother me one bit if that was the reality that was in place. In general, though, I don't know why, But for a lot of guys, it tends to bother them if they're not the one making more money. Um, and we can go into that for a little bit, and I'm down to unpack that a little bit. But for me, it never bothered me none, because to me, I have always, my wife and I, we have always operated as a team. We're one
Mhm.
team. So it's not really I'm making and she's making, we're making X, and we're doing this and we're doing this, and we have this, and we came in with this, and we have this is the, it's a one team, it's a one team thing. So it was never a me or a her. It was always an us. So for me, it doesn't really matter if I make more or she makes more. For what we are ultimately more focused on is what are we doing to move the dial forward.
Yeah. I think like even though like that doesn't apply to you specifically, I think like what's going on here is the way we learned from our parents and our culture and old movies and times before, we were kind of taught like the man was the breadwinner, the man was the sole provider. You know, the man is the guy who brings in the money. The woman's the one who organizes the house and spends the money.
Yep.
So I guess when a guy feels like his wife is earning more than him, because you know we're specifically talking from the point of view of guys. I
Sure.
can't speak for a woman because I can't relate to one.
Right.
So speaking from the point of view for the guy from the guys, like I feel like the general mindset is if your girl makes more than you failed as a man because you're not providing for her. She doesn't need you. She makes her own cash.
Hmm.
And also it's kind of emasculating because she can afford more than you. She can buy more things than you. You know, like let's say I struggle to make a car payment, but my wife can already get a Mercedes. You know, we're both working, but she's at a higher place in her career. And meanwhile, I'm basically like Homer Simpson, you know, in a dead end job that's going nowhere. So, like, from that point of view, I get it. And it's not necessarily the wife's fault. I guess it's more of a projection of the guy's failures, his perceived failures on the wife. But do you feel like that's still like a reasonable mindset to have these days? Because I feel like there's a lot more different than what it used to be.
There it is. There it is right there. And it goes back to something we talked about in the beginning about finding someone, right? It's the evolution of how things are now, right? The role in the home used to be where it was the man and the woman was taking care of the home and raising the kids, and then the man was going out all day bringing in the money. Well, we've come into a time in our world where the career woman, right? The women are
The
in
boss
power.
girl.
There's a lot of women in power, and it's great. And I think it's fantastic. I think it's well overdue. There are a lot of women that I know in my own personal life that are just really, really, really smart, and people that I would not mind following in regards to an initiative. So that dynamic plays a factor because, for example, you meet someone that you love and you care about and all this, and let's say you finish high school, you got, and let's say circumstances of life happen, and let's say you got a GED, and you're working really hard, you got two jobs, you're working really hard, and you're doing your thing, and you meet this wonderful young lady that's an Ivy League, that graduated from an Ivy League school, and now she's the chief operating officer of a Fortune 500 company. Well, number one, hey, good for you, man. But number two, the circumstances of that situation in life just dictated it. Doesn't mean that you're a failure, right? You're doing the best that you can with the hand that you're currently dealt, right? Working two jobs, you're doing your
Mhm.
thing, and she's doing what she's doing with the hand that she's dealt, and she seems to be doing okay. And you guys have come together. So couple things. Um, you talk about there's a couple of things here. Number one is you talked about that, what are you providing for the woman, right? The number one thing women want is security, right? And you hear that, I've heard this a lot of times, that security, right? They want to feel safe, they want to feel secure. Money, yes, money helps provide security, helps, but money is not necessarily security, right? If you're rich but you're never home, because you're with other women left and right, they don't feel secure. Doesn't matter how much money you make, they're still not feeling secure because you're with somebody else when you should be with them. So security comes in various forms, and it's actually multiple facets and multiple factors that come together to make them feel secure. And maybe money may not be a strong point in your life, but that means you've got to be able to provide security in other facets and other forms and be intentional about those things.
But how would that security look like? Because
Sure.
I guess what you're saying is like we can't see money as the only contribution for a household. Like there's got to be other factors too. But like if you're with a spouse who makes more than you,
Yeah.
what can you give them? What else can you give them that isn't money because they already got it?
Yeah. So number one is the number one thing you can give them, right? Is love. All of yourself in regards to love. Make that they have the full you in there. Number two, security could be in regards to safety, right? I feel safe at home. I'm feeling safe that this gentleman's here, that he's taking care of the house, that he's protecting our home. Number three, vision. Vision provides security. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you really know where you're going next. So if you're leading your home and you're saying, hey, this is the plan, this is this and this, and this is how you're contributing to the plan, just because you're not bringing in the most money doesn't mean you don't have the vision, right? The president of the United States isn't the richest person in the country, but they're the vision,
Not
right?
yet.
And we follow them. Well, not yet, right? Not yet.
He's got to
But
give a few speeches when he's done with the presidency. Then he'll be rich.
that's right. That's right. And then right. But most presidents, right, in anywhere in the world, they might be amongst the wealthy, but they're not the richest, but they provide the vision and we follow their lead. And so there's ways that we can provide security in other facets that is not necessarily money. Money helps. Don't get me wrong. Money helps. Of course it does. But if you think just because you have a lot of money that someone feels secure, and you don't work on some of those other factors that we've talked about, you may have an insecure person in your home with all the money that you have.
True, but what I want to talk about in regards to this is like, do you feel like a big problem with like the money imbalance is not just like we're contradicting like centuries old stereotypes, you know, the man provides. It's also like the guy feels like he's losing in the kind of power dynamic. Because like if you're a person making more, and like this even applies to if you're a guy making more, there's this sense that you feel like you can impose more control over the partner that's making less. And like in some cases, let's say the guy's broke or the wife's a stay-at-home wife. Do you feel like there's like potential for like abuse of control by the person who makes more? Like in the case of a wife, they'll say, "Hey, I'm not going to buy any of this stuff for you," you know? "Hey, this is my money. I have a say over this." And like that person, and we see this a lot in like divorce situations or even like abused spouses. A lot of them feel like they can't really leave the household because they don't make anything.
Yeah.
So do you feel like it is a problem of control and that there should be certain financial safeguards on each side to protect against the abuse of that control?
Yeah. I think and I do believe that not every situation or circumstance is created the same, right? So there are scenarios where some of those guardrails are needed. What I would pause and I would say is that, we're talking about the home setting, and could that exist in the home setting where there's an abuse of power because of the money to make? Of course. But that could exist anywhere though, if you think about it. Could exist in the workplace, right? Could the CEO really just say, hey, you know what? All of you are going to start doing this and this and this and that going forward because I have the most of the money and I'm cutting the check. I mean, that happened. That could happen anywhere, right? Um, but A, you go to the place that you work, obviously for the money you're making, but B, in hopes that you're coming into an environment that seems fair, safe, right? A safe work environment, a fair work environment. So and you keep going there. Same thing with the home, right? Could that exist? Of course it could exist. But I think there are things that both parties, both the man and the spouse, they both have to work at making sure that they create an environment, a home that's safe and that's fair, that we're not using factors to influence how we treat one another. But that's work, man. That requires work because naturally, if you're not telling me something, for example, if it's somebody who's not making, let's say a woman is making more than the guy, and the guy is saying, hey, we can't go to, we can't go on this trip. And good and well, you got more than enough money to go on this trip if you want to supersede that decision, right? But you're saying, okay, but he's leading the home, and he's leading us, and he's saying we can't. Well, there's an internal battle, right? You got to kind of have to work through, right? Where you could, if you wanted to supersede it, but you're saying, but is this creating an environment that we want here?
Yeah.
That requires work, man. That requires some serious work because naturally, to your point, the whoever makes the most money could essentially control the whole environment.
Right. And I feel like it is becoming a case we see more these days where we are seeing relationships where the wife makes more than the man, because like as you said, we're talking about a new era of like career women, boss girls, things like that. Women are running their own businesses, they're starting their own platforms. There's even a lot of people who, like a lot of girls out there who feel like they're making a ton of money off OnlyFans and things like that. That is a big aspect of it.
Oh yeah,
And then that's on the women's side of it, where we feel like there's like more and more opportunities on that end. But then, like, with all like these opportunities, it is kind of taking away from the guy side of it, where there's probably going to be less jobs for guys. Guys are dropping out of college, so they don't have that degree coming in. They're going more into the trades, they're going more into labor jobs and these things, maybe you end up as like a millionaire contractor, but you kind of start off as like a minimum wage laborer.
right.
So like, I feel like as this becomes the newer reality, I feel like couples need to find that middle ground where they don't become so codependent or one-sided dependency. The broke one, whether it's a guy or girl, is really dependent on the person making the change,
Yeah,
like the good money. Because otherwise, I just see a pretty dysfunctional relationship. I see whoever has the money like buying stuff without like running it through the person who they're partnered with, like in marriage, saying like, hey, it's my money, I do whatever I want. And then that other person, it could be a housewife, it could be a stay-at-home dad, they basically gave up their ability to earn for the kids.
yes, sir.
And like, even though they don't get paid for that, that still has a lot of value there.
Tons of value.
Yeah. So like, so you are the financial constructor, you are the person who knows finance, and I'm assuming you see a lot of this
Woo.
in your industry. What can these people do to defend against that? Like some things I see is like prenups, some things I see is like joint bank accounts. Like what can people do to prevent like what could be just a messy breakup?
Powerful, powerful question. And there's a lot there, George. There's a lot there, a lot. But first, let's start with the prenup. A prenuptial agreement, most people know this, but for those that don't, right, let's, for the listening audience, and for those that don't know, a prenuptial agreement is usually an agreement that is done between the spouses that are about to be married, um in regards that assets that came in before they were married shall remain at in the ownership of the respective individual, that should they separate in the future, all assets go right back to the appropriate party. So that's a prenuptial agreement. There are pros to it. I want to say there's cons, but it's just based off of a preference. I do believe there is appropriate moments for prenups. Yes, I do. We've talked about some of them. For example, and it's not necessarily for a negative connotation. A lot of times people think a prenup is for a negative thing. Oh, you already are planning for divorce by that. That's a cop out. I would say that's a weak response, right? Because maybe there's a true validity or a good reason as to why this has been created, the prenup. So for one reason, if someone is married, you're marrying someone, let's say you're from an affluent family, very financially stable, a lot of assets, properties, etc., and you're married somebody, and it was out of love and the whole thing, that not good with money, family's not good with money, has been pretty broke for the majority of their life, and you guys come together. A prenuptial agreement in that regard is not necessarily could be used as a weapon that, hey, you're not touching any of this stuff if we break up. It doesn't have to be a weapon. It could actually be a tool for the success of the two of you. Hey, you haven't had, you didn't grow up with a lot of these things before, and you've struggled financially, and you've made this very clear to us. This protects you from potentially making a decision that could damage our future together long term. This this agreement, this arrangement. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a weapon. It could be a tool. I personally, and this is for part one about the prenup. My wife and I, we didn't do that. From the beginning, whatever I had, I said I'm bringing it. I'm putting the chip on the table, bringing the chips to the table, and whatever she had, she put the chips on the table, and we said we're gonna do this as a team, and there is no out. There's a book that I read some time ago, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to get it to you later, about somebody that started a business. It was like the mentality of like starting a business, and it talks about how those that make successful businesses, some of the folks that make really successful business didn't give themselves an option B. It was either you are going to make this business work, or you really have no other solution and you are basically done. And what it does is it forces that individual to have to make option A work. And they've made great business because they were willing to do whatever it took to make it work. I would say that was kind of the concept with us. We have there, we're in this thing. I could have stayed single. Going to my point, I was ready and prepared to be alone if I had to be. I knew where I was going. I knew my plan, and I'm still in the plan. I'm still going forward, and we're still doing the thing. And I was prepared to keep going to my north, if I didn't find anyone. Now, thankfully, I found someone in a soulmate in my wife. But for me, now that I'm here, I'm not looking back, and neither is she. So we knew that. Now there's risk with that. We understand that there's risk, because if it does get messy, and God forbid something happens, it can become very messy later. But we came into it saying there is no out, and so that's kind of why we went that direction. Now, joint bank account. You talk about joint bank. That's the second thing. I want to go back.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I just, because I'm enjoying this, I want to stay on the prenup for a bit more.
please.
The first thing is, I want your clarification, because there seems to be a lot of generalizations about a prenup. A prenup is not always simply like what's yours is yours and what's mine is mine. Like, there can be different kinds of prenups. There can
That's
be
correct.
very specific clauses in a prenup. They can probably be like annulled in terms of in times of infidelity.
Correct.
Like, screw this, you're not getting anything, you cheated on me. And also, like, I want your clarification with that. And also, like, a prenup does not include child support.
Does not include child support. That is correct. So if kids are involved, and you're no longer in the picture, for example, your obligation to your children shall remain. But to George's point, there are clauses that can be very specific to a prenup. It doesn't have to be so black and white. I kept it very generalistic for the listeners. But if there's a clause, right? If infidelity is in place, this will either activate it or deactivate the prenup, or whatever the case may be. So there are clauses and specifics you can put to an arrangement to protect everybody involved, and it's something that's agreed upon by both parties, right? So again, it's still a team effort in some regards, because both people have to sign the document saying that, hey, as co-signers of this agreement, we're going to proceed forward accordingly. So it still
Right.
requires a team decision. So again, doesn't necessarily have to be a negative connotation. Doesn't have to be a negative. Doesn't have to be considered like a weapon. Sometimes people do use it as a weapon. That, hey, you're not touching any of my stuff, and it's almost like this forthcoming thing. But sometimes it could be a tool that can help both parties.
I just feel like, it's a protection, and statistically it's going to protect men more, because even though, like, there is this rise of like women earning more,
Sure,
it's still like on average like guys who are really the breadwinners of the house.
that's right.
My thing is, like, we're kind of seeing this trend where no one's getting married anymore, at least not guys. actually there is less single women than there is single guys in certain demographics, because women are still marrying guys older than them. But people my age, like we kind of don't want to get into marriage, or we struggle to like make a commitment to another woman, well, to the woman, because we feel like there's not enough protections for the men. You know, like we feel like we're taking all the risk. And this isn't specifically me, it's a generalization, but we're taking all the risk. And at any time, your spouse can just be like, look, I don't feel like this is working out. I'm not happy. It's like, fair enough. Like, I'm not happy, or I want to find myself. I want to explore my options. I didn't experience enough. And then they can divorce you. And the courts generally tend to be in favor of the woman,
Sure.
you know? And from what I see, and I see this in my family a lot, I've seen this among like older friends, like in their 40s, where there are four parties involved in a divorce: the man, the woman, the man's lawyers, the woman's lawyers, and only three of those four parties win.
Mm.
The woman, the ex-wife, who gets some of the assets, the lawyer who of the wife whose contract stipulates that they get a percentage of whatever is won,
Yep.
and the lawyer of the guy who has to get paid anyway. The guy
Sure.
generally tends to lose. So then, because there's this image out there, and we also see it in a ton of media where like a guy gets divorced in like shows and movies, he gets screwed.
Yep.
Girl still moves on. It's like boss girl and all that. And good on you for getting a piece of the pie. We kind of like say like, why would I want to get married?
Mm.
You know, why? Like, why would I want to risk all my assets? And it's like, and you, I'm happy for you. You got wife, you got your kids. You obviously, like, to me, it seems you guys are really down to earth, happy family. That's what I wish I had.
Yes, sir.
But for me, like from what I've seen, the reality is, I can marry the woman of my dreams right now. She's the woman of my dreams right now, but I can't anticipate the future. I can't read her mind. I can't make a prediction where it's like one day she loves me and then one day the love dies. And I've seen relationships, and I had an ex where like out of nowhere, it just feels like, how could this girl have just like done this to me, ghosted me, disappeared out of my life? And if my finances were tied to that, I would have been screwed.
You're right.
So, like, from that point of view, I see why guys will want a prenup. And I know, again, like, people are like, yeah, but that means you don't love the other person. And it's like, yeah, but I can like flip that argument around and say, yeah, but if that person loves me, she'd get the prenup.
True.
So I don't know, like, what's the, in your opinion, like, what's the easy or the easiest answer to that? Like, if your spouse comes to you saying, "Hey, look, I want a prenup. I don't want the government involved in our business. If we're not in love anymore, let's just make a clean break, move on our separate ways. Of course, we'll take care of the kids. That's a separate matter. But like, let's just like do a clean cut."
Yeah.
And when, sorry, I gotta let you talk. It's
No,
like
no, this is
one
good.
case that comes to mind is Brendan Fraser.
Mm.
You know Brendan Fraser,
Oh
the
yeah,
guy who starred
the
in The
mummy,
Mummy.
Mr.
He
Mummy. Yep.
disappeared for years. He came back like overweight, depressed, like he had a lot of mental issues going on. People are like, what the hell happened to him? He was a star, he was a movie star.
Yeah.
And what happened to him was he went through like such a very messy divorce without a prenup. And maybe there's a lot of things we're missing here. We don't know what really happened in the courtroom.
Sure.
Maybe like there was a genuine reason why like his ex-wife had a bigger share of his earnings. But what basically happened was he fell out of love with his wife. Like they both fell out of love. They got divorced. The judge ruled that he should pay spousal support based on his top years, his top financial years. Like he was making the biggest movies, earning millions of dollars, which was in the past. That
That's
doesn't
right.
apply anymore.
That's right.
And that he couldn't keep up with the payments. So he went into depression. His career took a dive. He became pretty like anxious and depressed individual. He became broke and bankrupt, and only now is he making a comeback. Like years of misery.
Wow.
So when I see that happen, and I know like I should marry someone who's perfect. Is there's no such thing. Like,
That's interesting.
why wouldn't I insist of getting a prenup?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to me, I think it's on everyone's preference. But one thing I would say is that you know love in general and marriage, everything, life in general, life is a risk. Finances are a risk, right? We're talking about finances too. It's all a risk, right? We don't really know the return, right? At times we anticipate the return, right, greater than our investment, but it's all a risk. And to me, the reason why, for and again, for those that, and again, like I've mentioned, there is a place for the prenup. I do believe there's an appropriate place. For me, it wasn't something that I wanted or preferred, because I once I was in, I there was no out, and that was something that I made my, told my wife. I said, listen, I'm more than okay, on my own. I'm more than okay on my own. But if we're gonna do this, we're in this thing all the way in. And is it a risk every day? Yeah, it's of course it's a risk. Everything's a risk. Life is a risk, right? Could it flip on me one day? It could. I can't say no. It will never. How do I know that? Right? They could
I mean,
flip
knock
on
on
me.
wood.
Right? Knock on wood. Right? But with marriage in general, and for those that are married, right, and then that's listening to this, they would say this: marriage is work, just in general, man. It's two flawed individuals that will always be flawed individuals in one way or another, learning to work together and learning to become one. That's a life journey. It's just life. It's just a lifelong journey, and it's just a matter of two people fully committed to continuing to make it work. So if you notice, a lot of times when people are not, when like before the divorce is gonna happen or whatever, what do you normally hear? It's not what? Working out,
Mm,
right? Because it's work. And now
irreconcilable differences.
right. And again, don't get me wrong, there are circumstances that come along the way that sometimes are beyond repair, if you will. But to me, I found that marriage in itself is work, and it's a risk. But life in itself is a risk. Every day you step out to go somewhere, you're taking a risk. You don't know what's gonna happen once you get into your car. You can crash, and so the worst could happen. Um, and so I knew that going in. But for those that feel secure with a prenup, um, do the prenup. And if that's something that's part of your parameter as you're going north, then whoever you comes along has to coincide with you where you're heading next and kind of the direction you're going. And just understand that you have to be prepared to be alone if that's the reality. But don't deter yourself into the woods and then you're losing time and direction because you're chasing something or someone that you shouldn't be.
Right.
Just my thoughts, man.
I wish, man. I really like want to have that faith in the other person. I guess that's something that's a personal problem, like that's something I got to work on because there's no person right now and I'm still like feeling that stuff. So it's a me thing. I don't know, it's something that makes me worried for the future like if I ever do get married, which is something I do want. I hope I find that person who I either trust completely and knock on wood, nothing bad ever happens, if that's realistic, or a person who's like understanding and says, "Look, if this is what's needed for us to go forward, yeah, I'll sign the prenup."
That's right.
I hope so, but like, we'll see what happens. For you, at least, I am happy you have that,
Let's talk
like
about the
that
joint bank.
trust.
Let's talk about the joint bank account real quick. There's something interesting
Yes.
I want to mention about that. This is just a fun fact for you, and this is for anybody. And so, just a quick fun fact, quick side note. Back in July, George, I don't think I ever told you this, but back in July, I actually hosted a free webinar through our financial community about love and money. Believe it or not, I did it back in July. It was a free webinar. I opened it up to anybody, and we had a great turnout. A lot of people listened in. A lot of people very interested in hearing about love and money. Right, very interesting topic. Um, but one thing I shared with those that are dating, and I'm going to share this with you here, and this is a free one for those. I like giving a free one when I'm talking to George's followers. So the free one for those that are dating, I would encourage you while you are dating it with somebody now, dating, not married, dating. I would open a joint bank account with that person. Yes, I would open. And I will repeat it again because I see the puzzle's face, and I'll give you my reason
You mean
why.
if they're like your girlfriend, not if you just
Yes.
met them at a bar?
No, not the bar, not the
Okay,
bar
because
girl.
dating is like
Not
nothing.
dating. I'm talking about like a
Okay.
girlfriend, someone that's a girlfriend. I would open a joint bank account with your girlfriend or a
Mm.
boyfriend, or whatever the case may be. I would open a joint bank account while you guys are dating, not married, for a couple reasons. Now, when I say a joint bank account, I'm not saying like you guys are gonna throw all your direct deposits into this account and this is, we're gonna do this. I'm talking about a legit account that you guys can use as a case study. What you'll learn is you're gonna learn about yourself. Number one, you're gonna learn a lot about yourself as it pertains to sharing funds with someone else. And number two, you're gonna learn about the other person in regards to how they behave and manage money with someone else and also alone. And what you start doing is you start taking some mental notes very easy early. And again, it's not this thing where you like doing this interrogation or investigation, but you're just living off of it, right? Let's say you guys say, hey, this is gonna be we're gonna use these funds to do our travel money. So you're gonna put in money, you guys are gonna be using the account, etc., and you guys are gonna be using this joint bank account. But you're gonna start learning behaviors of the other person and studying, hey, this person likes to spend a lot of money. I like to save money. Or the other way around. This person doesn't like to spend a penny. I love spending money. So you're gonna start learning some of those things about someone early on before you get into marriage. So you start observing some of these financial behaviors of the individual you are aspiring to marry in the future. Number two, it starts to build lifelong teamwork that's going to be required in the next stage of your life whenever that time comes. um, you know Managing finances, whether you guys have a single account or joint bank account, whatever the case may be, you guys are still working together. And so you start building those habits of working together with life skills that are going to be required in your next journey in the time you're dating. Number three, if it doesn't work out, it wasn't like you guys put a lot of risk into it. You guys could always take the money and split up and, hey, you take your thing and whatever the case may be. But I did this with my wife, and it was a very interesting. I learned so much about my wife's financial habits through it, and she learned a lot about me. I learned early on that she's not good with money. I learned very, very early on because I would see, and I'm saying, "Wait, how come I'm the only one putting money in this
Let's hope
account?"
she's not watching this video or
Yeah,
this part.
yeah. Well, she'll listen to this because she listens to she follows your page, but she'll listen to this, and I'll get in trouble about this. But she's not good with money because I would find myself, okay, I had a habit. Okay, we started this account, we're using this account to start. Believe it or not, the account that we started was to buy our house. That's the account we did as we were dating. This was the house account, and so I was throwing money in there, and then I would look, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the only one putting money in here. And so I went to her and I'm like, hey, what's going on? She's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I'm struggling putting money in there. I'm like, how are you struggling putting money in when you have so much extra money? She's like, I don't know why. I just keep losing, I keep spending too much money on clothes and this and that. And so I had to teach her. I'm like, okay, hey, put 50 here, put 50 here weekly, 50 here weekly, and this will help you kind of get into a habit. So then I studied, okay, she's not good with money, so she needs some guidance, right? With me, she learned, he's very disciplined with his money. So we started learning things that once we got married, some of these things we didn't have to learn on the fly, where it became a marital argument. What are you blowing all the money for? We avoided some of those things. Number two, and this is one, not joint bank account, but this is another strategy I give to people that are in our community. So we have couples that, we have different couples that join our community and they do it together, whatever. One piece of advice. Here's a free one. Create an allowance for the two of you. By far, one of the most powerful advices I can ever give you. George, that's for you. You'll get married one day and you'll do your thing. Create an allowance, you and your spouse. Why? Because an allowance allows you and your spouse to continue to be who you are as people. Everybody's different. Not everybody likes to save money. Not everybody likes to spend money. But an allowance allows the two of you to remain and continue to be who you are under control. So, for example, if you guys say, okay, every 2 weeks we're going to give each other an allowance of $100, you don't like to spend money. Okay, so you have money in here, $100. In 2 weeks, you're going to get another $100. Now you got $200. Or maybe you spend $50. after 5 or 6 months, you may have a 12, 13, $1,400 to go buy yourself something nice or take everybody on a trip because you've been getting your allowance. If your spouse is a spender, they get $100 every 2 weeks to buy whatever they want, guilt-free. This is your money, no problem. But what that does is it gives them the ability to continue to be who they are, but it doesn't compromise your bank account because you only got $100 to spend every 2 weeks. That's an example.
And it
But
accounts for that like power imbalance.
that's it. That protects your account, allows them to still be the person that they want to be, allows you to still save your money because you don't like to spend money, and it avoids the marital conflict. Allowance.
I mean, I would like I showed with my face. I was skeptical when you suggested it, but that actually makes a lot of sense. Like
Powerful.
that's actually something to consider, because like that advice, like live with a person before you decide to marry with them, so you can see their habits. This is basically that, but with finance, and like I think it would prevent a lot of bad marriages from happening, and even like facilitate a lot of good marriages to happen.
It does, man. It is the joint bank account, and it kind of it makes you feel kind of weird, like, man, I'm going into a bank, going into the bank to open it with somebody I'm just dating, right?
Yeah.
But use it as okay, I'm creating a case study. I want to get
Mm.
to know you a little bit better. This puts a little bit of some reality, a real-time simulation to our life, right? If you're somebody you're serious about. Because remember, this is the thing. At least for me, not everybody's the same way. Everybody's different, right? But for me, I wasn't a big dater growing up. I didn't date a lot. I had fun a lot, but I didn't date a lot. Because for me, if I was dating, it's because I was trying to, I considered you somebody that I was really serious about. To be
Potential
honest.
spouse material.
Right. Otherwise, don't want to waste my time. We're not dating. But if you were somebody I'm really serious about, then I want to show you and demonstrate to you that I'm serious. And this was a way to do it, but it allowed me to learn about you a little bit better because there's be
Yeah.
important notes that I'm going to need to know once we get married. That okay, you're not a good spender, got it, or good with money, no problem. We can work on it, and you start building habits that can carry into marriage if that's end up being somebody you end up dating.
100%. I think honestly that's amazing advice.
Yeah.
And now I want to actually get into family finances and how that influences everything. But before I get into that, I want to ask you, because this is kind of like a big thing. Do you spend the money on a big wedding or do you save it for a house?
Powerful.
And after you answer this, I kind of got a story which made me ask this question.
Okay. So shout out to my dad. Gave me some good advice before we got married. And I have shared this advice with people after the fact. For anybody. And I heeded to his advice, and then here I am still today, right? He says and this was his advice at the time. He says, George, he's like, that marriage, the money you spend on that marriage, let's say you spend 25 G's on the marriage, on a wedding that night. That's good for one night. The day you get back from the honeymoon, you have nothing to show from that wedding except memories.
And maybe a
Photos.
baby in the oven.
Yeah, well, that too. And that too. But just memories and pictures, and that's about it from the $25,000 wedding. Says, but if you spend, and don't get hung up on the numbers. He was just giving the analogy. You spend $10,000 on a wedding, for example, but you spend $15,000 on going to marriage seminars and conferences and workshops. That $25,000 is going to allow you to sustain long term for your marriage. Point is to answer your question. Anyways, a great advice. And I did go to marriage workshops early on, which was really helpful in my early years as we were still trying to figure each other out, my wife and I. But the point is if you got it, do it. If you got it, do it. If you balling in money, a big way, it may not do anything for you. If you don't really have it, I would say don't do it. This is more of a financial advice more than anything else. If you don't really have it, don't overextend yourself. That's financial advice. But for both, whether you got it or you don't, think beyond that day and think long term is the advice.
100%. Because, like, and I'm going to tell you why I asked this.
Sure.
I got two cases. One case where the families did have the money to throw around, and one case where the person did not. And it was wow. Case number one, like I got my mom. She works in the wedding industry in the Mid East, so she deals with like the highest class clients, billionaires, millionaires, royalty, celebs. And I would work with her on the ground, managing the ground crew, assembling the stage and everything. So like in one of these weddings, like it's a big luxurious wedding, like crystal chandeliers, like these like 20-foot tall structures, like the best food, the best music, the best lighting. Like we're talking millions, like millions worth of like setting the whole thing up. And then like basically 2 days after the wedding, we hear they broke up. They got married. It only lasted 2 days.
Get out of here.
So I'm here wondering, like, okay, we got paid, so I don't, so like, we're not. Everyone else is fine, and if they ended it that easily and they're still wealthy, like, okay, like, no one really suffered here, but like, oh my god, what a waste. So that's where the people had like money to burn.
Right. You
The
have
case where people did not have money to burn was like someone I know, like a relative, we'll call him. He married the girl of his dreams. They've been dating for years, and then they plan out this dream wedding, like fireworks, massive venue, massive cake, like a lot of DJs, a lot of lighting. The proposal was so extravagant it involved a plane. And
oh,
okay, I hope that person's not like watching this right now. I don't think that person is. But like,
like and subscribe if you listen, if you're that guy. And
I mean,
comment below.
yeah, like he'll know I'm talking about him.
That's hilarious.
But like, and like, this is not a wealthy person. It's a person with a good job.
Okay.
He's got a good job. She had a good job, and basically, it's just this massive wedding which costs so much money. It wasn't like chump change they had lying around, and they split.
Oh my god.
After a couple of years, they split anyways. I'm watching that and I'm wondering, it's like, again, where did all that money go? Like, what was the point? Like, they could have like bought a house, they could have started a business, they could have kept it in their bank accounts, like they spent all this money on this wedding, which is just like one day where you're basically showing off. The
Yeah.
love is already declared for each other. You can already look into each other's eyes and say, I freaking love you. We don't need anything to show that.
Right.
Like now this is a commitment between me, you, and God to spend the rest of our lives together. Like money, like extravagance is not part of that. The extravagance is to show off and to like show off to the family and
That's
stuff.
right.
So like you spent all this, like, and then you guys split up and like the money went nowhere, when you really, like, as you said, could have just been building like foundations for the future. Maybe
That's
if
right.
the money wasn't gone into this wedding, like it could have just gone into like investments or a house. You guys could have felt like secure enough
That's
to
right.
not like fight with each other all the time and then just split. So yeah, I agree with you. Try to, don't make an extravagant thing. It's not like a public holiday. It's two families joining together. It's got, like, my opinion, it's got to be a humble thing if God's involved.
That's
It's
right.
got to be like a genuine thing.
That's right, man. And think long.
So now moving on to the family part of it, I want to start with like, yeah, what does insecure finance do to a family unit? No savings, no investments, a ton of debt, and you got kids.
Yeah. Duh. Just thinking about it, man. Just thinking about it. There are so many people in our world, man, that are right there. So many right now, man. Just so many people. And I feel for people in those situations right now. My mission is got, I because I care about people and their financial future. This is why I started this financial coaching program. And just when you asking that question, like it hit me because the level of stress that comes with that is so toxic, man. so toxic for everybody involved in that environment that it starts to have ripple effects, man. Insecure finances. You know, tension, right? Tension at home. You get stress. Health starts getting involved when you get stressed. You're stressed out. You're not sleeping well. You're not eating well. Your health starts getting affected. It affects everybody involved. Um, just seems like the days kind of start to blend together, right? You're not really getting anywhere fast. Um, and if for anybody that might be listening to this and currently having some insecure finances, the first thing you guys can do, the first thing you guys can do is to get together as a family, kids involved and everybody, the whole unit, and come up with a plan as a family. And it may take some time because like I tell people and all the time, through this program, that more often than not, there was a process and a journey that got you to the situation you find yourself in today. So you have to give yourself time to get out because it took you time to get to this situation now. You got to give yourself time to get out. But you've got to build a plan. Sometimes folks are just stuck right there, paycheck to paycheck, paycheck to paycheck, paycheck to paycheck, paycheck to paycheck. Circumstance comes in. Now they're taking on debt, collections, and credit card, and just toxic, man. Toxic.
Do you feel
But
they start taking it out on each other? Like,
absolutely.
ah, you bought these new sheets, we didn't need these sheets, or ah, you didn't need that tune up on your car, you didn't need that new stereo system. Like, and it's
Absolutely.
not really those items, it's just the insecurity.
There's something about money, man, that it can sometimes change people's behavior. Give you a perfect example. You get paid from your main job usually every 2 weeks or so. Let your job not pay you on the day you're supposed to get paid, and see how your day feels. All of a sudden, all of a sudden, your day, you're not. I'm not. Don't talk to me today, right? It's
Yeah.
money has this thing where it can just really affect and influence people's behavior. So when people are in those situations, man, the behavior changes, man. Every little thing, it's just everything is up at arms. You're not sleeping well. It just a domino effect, man.
Yeah. I think it's sad. It's like, like, again, I see this in my life and I've experienced a bit of it myself where you see a family that's just like, they don't feel secure. They feel like nervous. They feel trapped, especially like if you got something like bankruptcy coming up, they feel it's the end of the freaking world. And then it just collapses them. Like, it wasn't infidelity. It wasn't like a health issue like cancer or something else, even though, like, if you don't have money, it can like,
Sure,
due to like medical treatments, it can like be connected.
sure.
Like it wasn't just like falling out of love. It was just like this like lack of a financial foundation that just made everyone just go insane and lashing out and going nuts.
Yep. and
Mm.
and we as people, we have to continue to find ways um to supersede the paycheck to paycheck. Here's another thing that I'm starting to see too now. It used to be paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. Now I'm seeing paycheck to credit card lifestyle, man.
Ah,
This is where trouble begins. Where now you can't get to your next paycheck anymore for some folks. I'm not gonna have enough. I gotta swipe the card, and now they're using the card as a means of living or survival. That, hey, I can't get to the next paycheck, or taking cash advances out, or whatever the case may be. Um, you know, at some point, everybody's got to make a determination that they've got to put their foot down somewhere.
for sure. So like at the end of it, like you're not getting like a spouse, you're not getting an individual, you're not getting a roommate, you're kind of getting a partner
That's it, man.
for the best times and the good and the bad times.
For the good and the bad, man.
And we're coming to the conclusion of this video, but this is something I always like discussing because, again, very relevant to my own circumstances back in the Middle East. I want to talk about two things, hopefully briefly, and this comes to the topic of death.
Mm,
I want to talk about life insurance, and I want to end on talking about inheritance.
Okay.
Because I feel like, we don't want to talk about death in general. It's going to happen. You can be an atheist, you can be Christian, you can be Jewish, Muslim, it's going to happen. It
Yeah,
doesn't discriminate.
that's right.
It's an equal opportunity end of life, we could say. And what that means is I see a lot of times, even my mother herself, she just doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to acknowledge it because she's not afraid to die. She's afraid of us dying.
Mm.
That's the worst thing in the world for her. God bless her. But like because of that, she doesn't want to acknowledge anything to do with life insurance. She doesn't want to acknowledge anything to do with inheritance. And back home, we have land. She has her jewelry. We have assets, and it's got to be something that I keep telling her. I try not to push it, but like it's got to be something that's settled when you're alive.
Yes, sir.
Else, we're going to be in this situation. I don't know if it's a very common thing in the States, inheritance disputes,
Oh
but
yeah,
like in Lebanon, I see a lot of situation where like three siblings will like inherit land from their parents, but then like they have no plan for the land, so it's just like they're wasting away. And then like those siblings will have children of their own, and then one of the siblings will die, and then the land is like two siblings and five grandchildren, and then because no one planned, they got no value out of it while they were still alive. Could have gone to healthcare, kids, education, and now like you got like 20 individuals with like 5 meters each, and it's worth nothing.
right.
And worse than the actual value of the land, you got all these individuals who now hate each other
That's right.
because they're just fighting in court. They're fighting in the dining room. They're like, oh, I love my mom, but I hate my brother. Because
Yeah,
and how do these conflicts always start? Yeah, he screwed me over land back home.
that's right.
He screwed me over the inheritance. Or worst case, there was no actual will. So again, now it's like a big battle between lawyers,
Chaos.
and the only people winning are the lawyers.
Yes, sir.
So when it comes to number one, life insurance, and number two, inheritance, how
Yeah.
would you go about it as the financial constructor?
Yeah, yeah. So life insurance is something everybody needs to be prepared for. Something that a lot of people don't do, and this is something that you talked about kids, right? Nobody wants, the worst thing anybody ever wants to experience is their kids dying. Nobody wants that, right? But you know, uh, your kids having a policy at a young age, term life policy. First of all, it's very, very cheap for kids because kids have the majority of their life. They're healthy, etc., etc. But certain life insurances that you do with your kids, you can actually use and get cash out later on, which you can use to either buy them a vehicle. You can use it towards college. A lot of different vehicles there. So, number one, for your kids, I would consider doing some sort of term policy of some sort for life insurance. There are policies out there. Do your research on that, but you can take advantage of that for your kids. Number two, as adults, I would be remiss if I don't use the word irresponsible if we don't have a life insurance. First of all, someone's got to, whenever our time comes, someone has to bury us, right? Someone's got to, there's a cost to that, right? Nothing's free. There's a cost to doing those things. There's a cost for those processes that come along the way. Um, in the midst of the mourning, hopefully they're mourning that we're no longer here. In the midst of that mourning, we talked about money, right? And the tension of money and how money influences behavior. In the midst of that, not having the resources to be able to do the things that they need to do for you adds another unnecessary layer of stress and tension in the midst of mourning. That's completely unfair because you're not there to experience it with them or be accountable for how they're feeling because you're gone, right? So the word is irresponsible in my opinion, and I hope nobody gets offended on it, but I don't know if there's a better word if you don't have that for life insurance. In that,
It's realistic.
yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that. The other thing I would say, as aside from life insurance, too, a living will, a will of some sort, writing a will out, just so that people are aware. Now, will, something that people don't know, and this is just some people may or not know. People write a will, and they think if they write, you write it on a piece of paper. A will is usually, at least in the United States, a will is used for your medical wishes once you're gone, right? I want to be cremated, I want to be buried, whatever the case may be. But if you do a trust, if you build a trust, especially a living trust, I know in Florida you can do a living trust, but if you do a trust, basically this protects the government from infiltrating your assets once you're gone, and it protects the terms in there.
They
Folks
always
that
want a
don't have,
piece, man.
sir.
They always want a piece.
Oh, they always want a piece, man, and they'll try to still get a piece. But if you build out a trust, what a trust does, it creates. For those that don't know, you might know this, of course, but for those that don't, a trust almost creates uh, 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 um, a hedge around all of your assets. It protects the assets, and then those that you assign to the trust protects them, gives the in the hedge of your assets. So for my wife and I, just not too long ago, we built out our living trust and we put all of our assets there. We made very specific what goes to the kids. This percentage goes to this one, this percentage goes to this one, this one goes to this one. If something happens to us and they are minors, meaning under 18, these are the three people in this order that will get custody. There's You don't want to create, and we're talking, of course, while her and I are talking about, we're like, man, like hopefully we never have to, like, this never needs to be executed, like, but or at least much sooner than we want. But like, you don't want to create chaos for folks, right? Because to your point, you die and then all of a sudden you got family members fighting over stuff that you left behind. The legacy you leave behind is chaos. It's not, wow, man, look what, dad left, for all of us, or look what grandpa left for all of us, or great grandpa. Now it's like, man, since he's been gone, look at all the stuff that's happened. And it tarnishes probably what and it takes away from the effort that you actually try to do to leave generational wealth to those behind you. But you got to organize your assets, man. Organize your assets so that you relieve unnecessary tension and stress to those that are mourning after you're gone.
100%. I can even think of a case where a good friend of mine and one of his relatives passed away. And imagine your relative passed away, you get a letter, and it's like, hey, this guy's debts need to be paid. Yeah. So I guess an empathetic way to say it, or a very good marketing way to say it, would be like, your kids are going to be your babies, whether they're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Your kids are still going to be your babies even after you die, and you're still taking care of them after you pass away.
Yes, sir.
So that'd be a great way to put it. And George, we come to the end of the video. I really want to thank you for all this. Before we leave the part with words of wisdom, after talking about departing life, let's leave a positive note.
Yeah.
Tell us more about your business.
Yeah. So for those for those of you that are just looking to do something about improving your finances, you may, maybe you're living paycheck to paycheck or paycheck to credit card. Maybe you're doing well. Maybe you're the one buying the $1 million home, the $1 million marriage, and just got divorced 2 days later. Or, maybe you're doing well financially, but just want to learn some more. There's a place for you here within our community, the Financial Freedom Builders. And it's a community that has grown. It's full of people that are looking to evolve in their financial journey and looking to be around people that can encourage them. One thing I would say as an aside, real quick, before we conclude, is that we do have a monthly financial class the fourth Tuesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. We hold a monthly financial class for those members in our community. And this particular month, we're actually doing a class. I have a guest speaker who's actually a specialist in LLC. So LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. Basically, if you start a business, it's one of the types of businesses you can create, which is an LLC. But there are a lot of benefits of having an LLC, even if you don't have a business. And one of the things about being in financial freedom, yeah, you have to get money and obtain money, but you have to learn how to keep the money. Because if you don't keep the money, then you're not really advancing forward. But an LLC is a great tool to help you keep your money. And so we're teaching. There's going to be a guest that's going to be giving a class on LLCs and its benefits this upcoming month on November 28th, 7:30 p.m. Encourage all of you to consider joining the class, getting that knowledge, and continuing to grow your knowledge going into next year.
Thank you. Thanks for all that. George, thanks for coming here. Thanks for sharing us your wisdom. Guys, you know the drill. Please follow George's media down below, links down below. Like this channel, like this video, subscribe to this channel, share the social media, and please don't be a burden after you die.
Well said.